another episode of Ask a Property Manager. My name is Eric Worrell with rentprep.com, and I'm joined by my co-host, as always, Andrew Schultz. How you doing, Andrew?
Good. How are you today?
Doing pretty well. For those of you who may not have seen one of these episodes before, Andrew, you manage roughly about 120 or so properties, right?
Yeah, about 120 doors across the Buffalo and Western New York region. We kind of run all the way from, not that it matters, most people probably don't know our area, but we run basically from like Lockport all the way to South Buffalo.
Okay. Very cool.
Mhm.
So we get questions from our Rent Prep for Landlords Facebook group. There's over 8,000 landlords, property managers, real estate agents in that group. And every week, Andrew picks out about 3 to 4 questions that we will go over to kind of discuss in further detail. So we've got 3 questions that Andrew picked, and we're going to get going on that. And I should mention, Andrew, just for you, not for the audience, this is for you.
Okay.
I just came from the dentist, so this is about as white as these are going to get in any video.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
I forgot you had a dentist appointment this morning. Mine was actually last week after our Ask a Property Manager. I had
You
my
gotta do it
cleaning.
before, and then you gotta
Yeah,
get
I
those
know.
bright lights. So I'm gonna talk like this so I get maximum exposure for the
Maximum
entire.
exposure. Yeah.
Yes. So question 1 comes from Lucy. And Lucy asks, she says, how do you determine what to charge for a 6-month lease? Right now, she's asking $2,000 a month for a 12-month lease.
So there's a couple of different factors that go into this. Grab my stress ball here. This is what I have to do to stay sane, by the way.
Okay, that's fine. It's
and
a little
you
weird,
can just
but
bare your
I won't
teeth.
judge.
Buffalo's a cold weather climate. So if I'm talking about a 6-month lease in August, that means that my lease is ending in the end of February, August, September, October, November, December, January. End of January. So February 1st to be the beginning of, or the end of the lease, essentially. I don't want a lease that's going to end in the middle of winter because it's very difficult to find a renter to move in the middle of winter. You're going to wind up with vacancy. So if you're looking at a 6-month lease, you may want to just say no outright if it's going to be a difficult time for you to try to release the apartment. The other things that you could consider would be if you can get an extra month's rent, kind of split up over that course of 6 months. So at $2,000 a month, divide that out by the 6-month lease term, increase the rent by that amount. That gives you a full month of vacant time to help you kind of offset the time it's going to take you to find a tenant. So that would probably be how I would handle it if I was going to do a 6-month lease at all.
So taking what you just said, if she's doing $2,000 a month, what would the calculation be for that?
You're going to make me do math. Let's see here. 2,000, 6 months. Be an extra $333 a month, basically. So it'd be $23.33 a month.
All right. Well, that's how you'd handle it, and then you just
probably
kind of base that on the season 2. Do you maybe like not go quite as high as if it works out for you? Because if they're asking in November and you think it's going to actually time pretty well, then you'd probably be more eager to get somebody in for a 6 month.
Yeah, I mean, I might upcharge the 6-month lease a little bit, but probably not nearly as much as if I thought I was going to have some vacancy that I was going to have to consume. If you're landing it in a warm weather month, I would be, at that point, it's just a matter of what do you think that you need in order to make it worth your while, I suppose. But if you're landing it in a cold weather month, you're definitely going to have to take into account, the vacancy, the utilities that you're going to have to pay, stuff like that. So it's something to consider. Just make sure that you're covering yourself to make sure that you don't wind up stuck with an apartment that you can't fill in the middle of winter.
Sure. Before we go to the next question, just wanted to say hello to Mia. Thanks for watching. I know Jen's watching. Actually, she just commented too. She said hello.
Of course.
Yes.
Hi, Jen.
So going on to the next question, we have from Valerie. She said, I called a potential tenant's landlord reference and they wanted us to send her a fax of release and she will fill it out and send it back. I've never ran into this before. What are your thoughts?
So typically if somebody calls us and asks for a landlord reference, we tell them that we need a signed release before we give them any information. The way our signed releases work is right on the bottom of our rental application. There's a release there that the tenant signs along with the credit and background checks and everything else. They sign that we're authorized to contact their landlords and get a landlord reference. So that's the release that we use. Is we basically just give them the bottom part of the application where the tenant has signed, the applicant has signed that they authorize that release. We send that to them, and then we have just a 1-page sheet that we use as part of our screening packet that goes through and asks several different questions of the landlord. So it goes and asks, what was the rent? Was it paid on time? Did they have any, issues with neighbors? Were there damages? Did they keep it clean? Did they have pets? It's like 10 or 12 questions, I think.
Yep.
14. I was just corrected. It's 14 questions. So, but that's what we do. And then if somebody wants us to provide a reference, then we ask them to send us a sign release as well. So you won't get a lot of that with like smaller onesie twosie type landlords. You get a lot of it with like apartment complexes and professional management companies.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the individual landlords don't make you go through those hoops.
We get, I should mention too, for Valerie, one of the packages we offer at RentPrep is called the Platinum Package. We do verification. So we'll call the current landlord, the previous landlord, and the current employer. We see this a lot with employers as well, because they have an HR and they have policy on this. And like you're saying, those onesie twosie landlords don't do it as much. But the RentPrep rental application has that language that Andrew is referencing, the disclosure right on the application.
Mm-hmm.
And we run into this a decent amount where we just have to, fax or email them a copy just to get that information over to them. It's not typical, though, that we have them request that they fill out information on their release form. Usually we'll send that and then we'll have a phone conversation to get the information from them. So,
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, if you see a property management company or an LLC on there, there's probably a better chance that they might ask for that just because they're playing things a little bit closer to the vest.
Right. Yeah. Another factor is something that I thought about, and actually one of the main reasons I picked this question is the number of people who either tenants must be lying on rental applications and landlords aren't catching it, or landlords are just not doing landlord verifications, because we probably process, if we process more than a handful of rental requests, like landlord verification requests in the course of a year, I would say that's a lot. Yeah. So I would say that they're probably either tenants are not being truthful on applications, or landlords just are not taking the time to screen their tenants properly, one of the two, because we process those things so infrequently that it leads me to believe that it's got to be something. It's got to be either, the tenant's not providing correct information. Maybe they're using a friend or something like that for some reason.
Yeah.
To kind of give a fake reference, or landlords are just not taking the time to screen their tenants properly. And I don't know if that's a systemic thing or if it's just a Buffalo thing.
It's kind of like a thing where you're kind of saying, are people not being credible and they're lying, or are people being lazy? I would guess that it's probably more so just not making the calls, if I had to put my educated guess on it.
I would think that that's probably a good chunk of it. But I mean, with the number of times that we've screened applicants and just found that they're outright lying about who their landlord reference is, I could see it going both ways. I mean, we catch probably, I bet you 1 in every 5 applications that we screen, we catch somebody trying to use a fake landlord reference.
Yeah, especially for that current landlord.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Let's move on to our third and final question. This one comes from Jean. So Jean asks, she says that she has a contractor who found a 1-inch plug of grease 30 feet down the pipe. And clearly it was the tenant's fault for pouring grease down the kitchen sink. So she wants to know if they can charge the tenant for the bill, and they're in North Carolina.
Okay. So I'm not sure if North Carolina has any specific laws on the books about what you can or cannot charge to a tenant. Keep in mind, I'm not an attorney. Our lease specifically states that we're allowed to bill tenants for tenant-caused damages. This would be a classic example of a tenant-caused damage. So if this tenant's been living in the home for an extended period of time, all of a sudden something gets clogged. If there's not roots in the line, that means that whatever's in the line is there more than likely because the tenant put it there. I mean, there are some exceptions to that. I know in the city of Buffalo, there are some areas of the city that the sewer, the mains just get backed up, and it will cause backup into the individual sewer lines that feed into it, sometimes to the point where you'll get backup in your basement, which is incredibly disgusting.
Yeah.
It's one thing when it's your waste floating around in the basement. It's something else completely when it's, all of your neighbors' waste floating around in your basement.
Yeah.
So, assuming that it wasn't something like that, where there was a large amount of backup across, an extended area of a neighborhood or something like that, it sounds to me like this was probably tenant caused, and it sounds to me like this is something the tenant should be charged for, but it's going to have to go back to your lease, whether or not your lease allows you to back bill tenants for tenant caused damages.
Yeah, and I actually, unfortunately, had to pay for a plumber to come out on a backup that I had in my bathroom sink. So I put a snake down the line, and I couldn't get
Mhm.
to anything. So maybe I just didn't go far enough or whatever. So,
Right.
a guy comes in, 15, 20 minutes, $190 later. But I was like,
Hmm.
I'm going to at least get my money out of this. I'm going to start asking him questions because I know that my neighborhood has some specific problems. So he
Right.
mentioned tree roots as being one. But he said his advice was, he said, I think he said he's been a plumber for a long time, and he's like, I
Hmm.
don't want to do plumbing when I get home.
Right.
So he's like, I have BioClean is what it's called, and he
Hmm.
showed me the Amazon listing. It's like a bucket like this, and it's
Hmm.
just a powder. And he's like, I put a scoop of it down once a month down all my kitchen, all my sinks, not the
Hmm.
toilets. And he's like, you'll never have a problem, and it also helps with those roots as well. So
BioClean, huh?
yeah, I'm pretty sure it was called BioClean. Let me double check on
Yeah, I'm
that.
actually going to pull up Amazon right now as we're
Yep.
talking here because this is the part that everybody finds exciting is when when we're viewing things that don't interest them.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's see, hard water stain. Do you have septic at home?
I do.
Oh, okay. So it's not your house in North Buffalo then. It's your actual
Ye-
primary residence.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen this stuff because when you said that, I'm thinking it must be septic.
Yeah.
And actually, I've got it pulled up. It's a little jar with a green label on the front of it.
Yep. I'll
Yeah, yeah, I've seen that stuff for septic systems, definitely, and it does help with the septic systems quite a bit. So
mhm.
that's a good product, that BioClean or similar products. There's a bunch of them out there.
Yeah, and I'm figuring, you know what, if it's just a scoop of it, putting it down the drain, I just put it
Hmm.
in my calendar, probably take me about 10, 15 minutes in my own
Hmm.
house to just kind of go through and make sure I hit every sink. So
Right.
start doing that and just hopefully that helps with kind of clearing some of the hair and different things like that.
Yeah, I
Um,
know. I had to tear my tub drain apart the other day because it
yeah.
was clogged up with hair and everything. And actually, one thing my plumber has repeatedly pounded into my head is do not use Drano.
Yeah.
If you have a clog in a sink or something like that, or in a bathtub, what he recommends is pour a bunch of baking soda down. Wait until the drain is more or less dry, and this may not work on something that's got standing water in it. But
Hmm.
if you can pour a bunch of baking soda into the drain and then pour like white vinegar down after it, and let it sit and foam and fizz for like 5 minutes, run hot water through it after that. That takes care of a lot of simple clogs like hair and stuff like that. Not as effective on grease, but on hair, it's pretty effective.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, and I put the name of that product up on the screen because I know Jen had wrote BioClean, but just kind of gave it a different spelling. So if anybody's
Mm-hmm.
looking for that on Amazon, you can get like a bucket of it for I think $50, but it's a pretty good size. So I'm assuming that lasts for a while.
Yeah, it's a 2 pound bucket, I guess, or jar. I
Hmm.
guess I would call it.
Yep.
Bacteria, enzymes. Does this do anything like in the actual septic tank itself, or is this meant more for just the drainage?
He told me for drain lines is what he
Yeah,
had recommended it for. So, but he said it'll also help with tree roots and things like that as well.
it must just eat right through everything.
Yeah.
Friendly
Yeah.
bacteria waste eliminator. Sorry, guys, I'm interested in this product, so I'm like, I guess I can look at this later.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a couple of different products like that out there. So if you've got septic, that would probably be a decent idea. Is tell the tenant, hey, once on the first of the month, on the day you write me your rent check,
Yeah.
go ahead and run some of this down the drains as well.
Especially if it's a continuing problem with someone, maybe that's something that you could, just work with them. And even if you're paying for it, if you know
Mm-hmm.
that that tenant puts maybe too much stuff down the drains, just say, hey, this stuff isn't cheap, but once a month, put this down on when you're paying rent. So,
Right.
all right.
Yeah, I mean, in septic systems, I'd rather spend $50 on a bucket of goo for the septic system than have to dig an entire septic.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking minimum $10,000, $12,000 and that's Western New York, but you're
Yeah.
talking like a minimum of 10 to 12K to dig a septic in
Yeah.
our area right now. So if you can do something to avoid that just by properly maintaining it, then that's 100% your best option.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Well, I believe that concludes episode number 50 of Ask a Property Manager. So we're 2 episodes away from what you could consider a full year. I'm impressed we've made it this long.
We've got to be over a full year because we've skipped a couple of weeks in
Yeah.
there, right?
Yeah, yeah. I think calendar year we're over, but yeah, we're coming in
We
on the
should
week
we should
years.
probably go back and look and see what the first one was that we did, and
Yeah.
let's have a cake or something.
Yeah, something.
You want to do
Like a smash
one at the
cake?
office or something?
Yeah, we could do that.
Okay,
All right. Cool.
cool.
All right. Well, until next week, take care. Thank
a
you
good
as
one.
always, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right. Take it easy.